Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Got another video today. I wanted to cover one of the Final Fantasy commanders that piqued my interest and show you guys my build for CEDH, Y'shtora Knights Blessed. She is 1 in Esper colors for a 2/4 Cat Warlock with Vigilance. At the beginning of each end step, if a player lost 4 or more life this turn, you draw a card, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell with mana value 3 or greater, she deals 2 damage to each opponent, and you gain 2 life. So immediately after reading this commander, I'm thinking an Esper control deck focused around triggering her second line of text, which will in turn trigger her first line of text. Having a card draw engine that also doubles as a way to pressure your opponents is always very good. I'm going to break down my build. I'm going to start off quickly with the ramp just to show you guys all the CEDH ramp that you should be playing in the deck. If you're not, Mox Diamond, Mox Opal, Lotus Petal, Soul Ring, Mana Vault, Arcane Signet, Fellwire Stone, Talisman of Dominance, Talisman of Progress, Dark Ritual for some early ramp. Lotho gets a lot of treasures. Opponents like to cast more than one spell for sure. And Smothering Tithe just makes a crap ton of mana, as well as Copy Artifact being a 2-mana rock most of the time, or it can sometimes be a 1-ring. Going to move on to card draw now. We have Mystic Remora Ristic Study, the 1-ring, Esper Sentinel as well. These are all the standard things you expect to see in Esper. You want to get your card draw engines online, especially in competitive CEDH metas, where everyone's trying to go fast, everyone's trying to combo as fast as possible, or they're trying to establish their draw engines as fast as possible as well before you get yours out. Fairy Mastermind is a great way to recover from a board state where your opponents all have draw engines. You get to draw cards up the wazoo and get yourself back in the game. He's a very good way with infinite mana as well to deck your opponents as well, or to deck yourself and Thassa's Oracle. Sig River Cutthroat, he's a 2-mana 1/3 at the end of your turn, or any turn. If an opponent lost 3 or more life this turn, you may draw a card. Our commander does 2 damage whenever we cast a spell with 3 or greater, as well as people are damaging themselves all the time with lands. There's City of Brass, Mana Confluence, Ancient Tomb, Cephalid Colosseum. There's tons of lands right now in CEDH that hurt you. Fetch lands as well, shock lands. There's plenty of times where this will trigger almost every turn. We have other ways of making it trigger as well, as we'll get into a little bit later here. I'll just bring it up shortly here. We have Talion, Orcish Bowmasters, Shieldred, quite a few other ways. So we're hopefully drawing 1 card on each person's turn with this guy. He's actually, I didn't see him in anyone's lists really, so I wanted to point him out in particular. And then Talion, 4 mana 3/4 flyer. You choose 2 or 1 mostly, and then you get to draw cards whenever an opponent casts a spell or a creature with power toughness of that number. Moving on to our Protection and Disruption, I'll move through the counter spells here really quick. We have Pact and Negation, which is a 0-mana counter spell, but you have to pay a hefty cost on your upkeep. Mental Misstep counters any 1-cost spell by paying 2 life, so that triggers our commander possibly if we've lost another 2 life that turn. Swan Song counters any enchantment, instant, or sorcery spell, and they make a bird. Flusterstorm counters any instant or sorcery with Storm. Fierce Guardianship counters any non-creature spell for free if we have our commander. Force Negation, we have to pitch a blue card to counter any non-creature spell if it's not our turn. As well as Force of Will, pitching any blue card and paying 1 life to counter any spell. Delay counters any spell, and we have to put it suspended with 3 counters on it. Mindbreak Trap, if an opponent casts 3 spells, you can pay 0 to exile any number of spells on the stack. Misdirection, you can exile a blue card rather than pay its mana cost to change the target of a spell with a single target. Notably, Mindbreak Trap, Force, Misdirection, all these cards you normally see in CEDH trigger our commander as well. So we're hopefully, by playing our deck normally how you'd play Control, we're getting card draw off of our commander, and we're lowering our opponent's life totals in the same process. Dismember, a solid removal spell in this deck because it triggers our commander and removes a problematic creature for 1 mana. Snuff Out, same thing. We trigger our commander and pay 4 life to kill something. Deadly Rollick, we pay for 0 and exile a creature and trigger our commander. Into the Flood Maw, much better than Chain of Vapor. I did not include Chain of Vapor. It's just a preference of mine that I don't really prefer that card over Into the Flood Maw. It has such a minimal downside, or sometimes no downside if you bounce a creature, which most of the time, if you're playing this card, you're bouncing a creature or an enchantment, and there's always one person to give the fish to, though it doesn't matter that much. Swords of Plowshares, Exile is the most problematic creature for life. Same thing with Path to Exile, no one plays basics in CDH. This is a free 1 mana exile creature. Psych Rift, bounce any non-land permanent or bounce everything. Toxic Deluge, one of the best board wipes in CDH. It's cheap, efficient, and it gets rid of indestructible creatures. And it also triggers our commander. Massacre, this is kind of a hot one. If your opponent controls a plains and you control a swamp, you may cast Massacre without paying its mana cost. All creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. This is most of the time going to be free as long as you're playing against a white opponent. Obviously, there's a lot of Esper, there's Blue Farm, there's Thrasios Tymna. Maybe you're playing against a Stax player in white. Most of the time this will be online, and having a free board wipe that also triggers your commander and doesn't kill your commander is pretty solid. Supreme Verdict can't be countered, destroy all creatures. I don't see this card enough in CDH. It's just a reset on the board that is very hard to stop. I mean, you pretty much just need to have Mindbreak Trap, or otherwise this is resolving. Orcish Bowmasters, this is a good way to pressure your opponent's low toughness creatures as well as their life totals, and it doubles as a win con in our deck. Opposition Agent, this is a solid way to stop our opponents from searching for problematic answers, or we could also slow them down in the early game by playing it on a cracked fetch land. Ranger Captain, this is protection for our win cons as well as protecting us from losing to our opponents, and he also gets a Mockingbird and an Esper Sentinel in our deck. This is a very, very good card. Silence, 1 mana. Your opponent casts spells during your turn. This doubles as protection from losing to our opponents as well as protecting our own win attempt. Voice of Victory, your opponents can't cast spells during your turn, and it has Mobilize too. So we could, theoretically, if our opponent has no blockers, beat in for 3 with this guy and maybe trigger our commander if they had lost 1 more life from something else. Grand Abolisher, this is just solid. Protects everything except for lands, so unless they have an Otawara or a Beseiju or something, or a Cabal Pit, they're getting wrecked. Spellskite, this is a very solid protection piece in our deck because of the Phyrexian mana, triggering our commander possibly, as well as just protecting all of our important creatures from removal. Grafdigger's Cage, this is solid against Unroll Breach decks and green creature spell tutors. There's a lot of green right now because of all the Cradle meta. Stopping those Enduring Vitalities from coming out, those Sowing Microspawns that go and get the Cradle and all that stuff. Just, we don't want to deal with any of that. Let's get it out of there, and it hits on Unroll Breach. Weathered Runestone, same thing, but it also stops non-land permanents instead of just creatures, so it hits a little bit more in the sense of, like, Sisay decks cannot search at all. Well, they can, they just won't be able to put anything into play, and it doubles as just a second way to stop Breach, Kin in, and all this stuff I mentioned before, Reanimation, green creature tutors. There's so much in the meta that gets stopped by this. You guys just have to play Weathered Runestone. It's so much better than Grafdigger's Cage. I can't talk about this card enough in CDH right now. Cursed Totem, this is another stacks piece that I just can't live without in CDH right now. There are so many decks that are trying to abuse creature activated abilities. In our deck, we pretty much just have Fairy Mastermind and Ranger Captain as our only activated abilities of creatures. We can live without those two being shut off by Cursed Totem. So this is an auto-include run in almost every Esper deck, which is why I'm a fan of the color pairing right now. And Amphibian Downpour. 3 mana Flash Storm, enchant creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a blue frog with base power and toughness 1/1. I don't see this card enough either. There's a lot of spells that are being cast on everyone's turns, provided there's no rule of law effect out. So you can easily put this, cast this, trigger your commander, and then put copies on all the most problematic creatures on the board. They're 1/1s. They'll have to trade off their commanders if you put this on their commander. It's very hard to counter as well because Flush the Storm doesn't hit it, so it's just Mindbreak Trap. Alright, moving on to our commander-specific cards that I included in this list. I wanted to start with Kambal, Council of Allocation. He's a 3-mana 2/3 Human Advisor with whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, that player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. This is going to trigger a lot throughout the game, and your opponents, most of their decks are non-creature spells. Even the creature decks, they rely on non-creature spells to propel them throughout the game and protect their decks. So if this triggers twice on someone's turn, you're drawing a card, and in the process gaining you a lot of life to help you throughout the game withstand your opponents eventually turning on you and trying to swing everything at you. Delny, Streetwise Lookout. She is a 3-mana 2/2 human scout with creatures you control with power 2 or less can't be blocked by powers with creature 3 or greater, and whenever a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. You'll be surprised how much work Delny does in every deck it's in. It double triggers our commander, it double triggers Orcish Bowmasters, it double triggers Esper Sentinel, it double triggers Kambal, it double triggers Sig, it double triggers almost everything in our deck. Fairy Mastermind, that's another one I thought of just now. It does so much work, also allowing us to get in with our cheap creatures, small creatures, to trigger our commander's ability to draw a card as well, which will trigger again. So Delny, huge pickup in this deck. Reanimate, I am including this because it's just solid to have every once in a while. I'll notice that even though I'm playing Grafdigger's Cage Weathered Runestone, those are just 2 cards in my deck that shut this off. And it's a way to get the best creature out of someone's graveyard, lose a little bit of life, trigger my commander. Praetor's Grasp triggers our commander and allows us to get a combo piece from someone's deck. Maybe even something that we're missing, like we could probably combo with Underworld Breach if you decided to add Brain Freeze to the list. I chose not to because Brain Freeze is a dead card without this card, so it's up to you if you'd like to change it into a way like where you just go into an Underworld Breach line off of someone else's deck. Definitely possible. Moving on to winning the game now. Let's start with our Thassa's Oracle Demonic Consultation line. It also works with Tainted Pact. You guys all know what this does. If you're playing CEDH, you know what this combo is, even if you're not. We also have Bloodchief Ascension and a wheel effect. So we have Windfall and Time Twister, as you'll see later on when I move through it. Bloodchief Ascension, it's so good. It turns on so fast in our deck because their commander triggers its effect. So it turns on incredibly fast. And people just playing the game naturally take damage from this, but also with a wheel effect it just ends the game, especially when they've been taking damage from our commander and our other effects throughout the game. Another way is Shieldred and Orcish Bowmasters with this card. We also have a couple clone effects. As I mentioned earlier, we have Mockingbird. We also have Phyrexian Metamorph in the list. We could easily clone a Orcish Bowmasters and wheel with double Bowmasters out. I've won many games like that as well. The last way we have to win here in the list is Mnemonic Betrayal. As we're playing a control list, as the game goes on, the graveyards are going to fill up. All we need is 1 tutor and some ramp, and this card pretty much just pays for itself and wins the game on its own. Very good card, and people have been taking it out, I've noticed, so try it out, put it back in. We're going to go through some utility lands really quick, and then we'll wrap up the video here. Odawara cannot be slept on. This card is it's free to run, and it interacts on a different level. As I mentioned earlier, it gets through Grand Abolisher effects as well. Manamo untaps any legendary permanent. This is mostly for the One Ring, but also can give our other legendary creatures vigilance. People don't often expect that, or they forget. Sink into Stupor. This is a land that doubles as a spell that triggers our commander, and also pitches to our Force Negation, Force of Will, Misdirection. And Mistrise Village. Even though it's a tap land, it has been putting in work, and I think it's an auto-clued in every 3 or less color deck that runs blue. Just being able to make your next spell uncounterable for 2 mana is insanely powerful. It just allows you to put up win attempts without a silence effect in your land base. It's very, very powerful. And then that will do it, everyone. I am Johnny Combo Player. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and watch another video if you're interested. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Bye.